was born in Cyprus because my mother and father went there I think my mother went there to start a hotel. She was a hotel, okay? I think she went there to start, and my father went there because my grandfather was a profligate, maybe. He spent his last penny there and he had nothing left. So he said, come from England, come to Cyprus. I only have enough money. So they bought a farm. So I was brought up on a farm. We had pigs and horses and all that kind of thing. And Venus was also born in Cyprus. See, so I was born here. Venus was born. I didn't share. Venus was born here. I was born here. Yeah. Well, so the story goes. So you can it's myth. Anyway, so we lived on a farm. The farm was called Margot. Not too long ago, about 60 years ago, doing national service, so I wanted to go back to have the farm. It's called Margot, but it's on the Green Line. And what does the Green Line mean? Well, the Green Line, when the Cyprus became independent, and they handed it over to it, became an independent island. The English people went home again. So immediately the Cyprus, they wanted to join up with Greece and become Greece. And the Turks were up the north were having nothing of it. They were only about 18% of the island, so they came down. So now the north of Cyprus is occupied by the Turks. The south of Cyprus is independent. And they spend most of their time, as far as I can see. I know a lot of people in Taiwan, and you talk about Cyprus, you know all these scams. So now in Cyprus, all these people spend their time scamming and pinching people's money. But that's, by the way, I suppose people have to make money somehow. But anyway, well, so I was brought to the farm, so there were pigs and ducks and all that kind of thing. So I think my mind, we used to have whole barrels here for it. Sometimes in Taipei, I go out and I buy a Subway, and they pick about 5 olives. But I remember we used to have whole barrels of them because we grew olive trees. And so we had olives, and we had, actually, it was rather like life at the south of Taiwan, except that it wasn't so wet. So we had blizzards about as big as the geckos. They were running up and down the walls. They come and they wouldn't bother you very much, I don't think, anyway. But you could see them anyway. There were all these people, and so we were there. Basically, it was an English colony. So basically, life in Cyprus was the men used to work down on the plains, and we as children, mothers and children, they went up to the north of the island is Trodos. So we went up there because it's cooler, and then during the summer we went down on the thing. So basically life was hoopoes. What is a hoopus? A hoopus is a kind of a bird. Taiwan we have hoopus, rollers and vultures, and so I had a little graveyard there. We have pets, and even foxes, pets, hoopus, vultures, dogs, canaries. So it was actually an idyllic kind of life. And because we were Catholics, at the Catholics at the time, there was a guy called Clifford Howe. And recently I've been going on bashing all sorts of people. And this guy, Clifford Howe, was a Jesuit. He was sent to Germany to become a kind of a chemist of some sort, because all the Jesuits, you get expert in something. But when he was in Germany, he discovered that the German people were well into what they now know as the liturgical renewal. So in other words, the Catholic Church, after 2,000 years of, anyway, I don't know how many they've been speaking Latin, and most of the people can't understand Latin, so and that kind of thing. So they changed the whole thing. And this guy, Clifford Howe, was responsible for part of it, because when he was there, he began seeing all these German people change the liturgy. And we all know, a lot of the change liturgy was a good thing, it was a bad thing. And I remember he said, he used to come down, because all the neighbours were Greek Orthodox. So the Greek Orthodox were split off from the Catholic Church 1,000 years ago, but basically they're the same. but they were very good people. So we have this young English woman with 5 children, and we had the nearest village was Piroi. They were all Greek Orthodox. And there was another village called Athena, and they were all Muslims. So we had a foreman who, on one occasion, when I was talking on the telephone to my brother, who's dead now, Daniel, and I said, going on about the Muslims and the Muslims, and he said, you seem to forget that when we were young, we were worshipping with the Muslims. I said, what do you mean worshipping with the Muslims? Well, he said, because this foreman, he was a Muslim, so 4 or 5 times a day he used to go, Allah. We were doing the same, that's what people do, Children do it when they see adults do something. So when I was 4 or 5, don't bash the Muslims, and they're doing it 5 times. It must have come from the Catholics, because the Catholics already have said Benedict, they have the breviary 5 to 7 times a day. So actually that Allah 5 times a day comes from the Catholic Church. In fact, the whole Muslim thing comes from the Catholic Church. Just in passing, where does it? The 3 things: Catholic Church, Schismatic Church, the Arab legends, and Muhammad's mind. So it's a mixture of all these things. So when you read the Quran, you're reading just a kind of mixture of this guy, Muhammad,